first thing you notice is the smell. It's the smell of unopened mail, of old paper and dust settling in a house that's gone too quiet. The silence is thick with shame, heavy with the words my husband and I can't bring ourselves to say to each other. We're afraid to even look at each other in this quiet kitchen. Just a few months ago, this same quiet meant peace. It was the sound of us sipping coffee together on the porch, John's laugh echoing in the morning air. I remember him handing me a single, perfect rose he'd grown by the fence. Now, the mail sits on the kitchen counter in a leaning tower of dread. Final notices with their angry red letters. They feel like tiny paper cuts, each one bleeding out what's left of our security. How does an $850,000 retirement fortress, built over 40 years of hard labor, collapse into bankruptcy? We had a plan. We thought we had done everything right. But we made one decision, one catastrophic mistake that brought the walls crashing down. Our life was never glamorous, but it was ours, and it was good. My husband, John. He's the kind of man you don't see much anymore. He has calluses on his hands that have been there for 40 years. I'd hear the factory siren shriek at 5, and soon after, the thud of his work boots by the door. For 35 years, my world smelled of chalk dust and Elmer's glue. He built things. I helped build little mines. We were simple people, savers, not spenders. I remember the cold metal bleachers at our daughter's soccer games, sharing a thermos of coffee we'd brought from home. On anniversaries, we'd go to Gino's, an old Italian place with red checkered tablecloths. We'd put a quarter in the corner jukebox and slow dance to our song, "Stand By Me." I remember one evening, after a hard week, he came inside not with the smell of the factory on him, but with a single rose. He didn't say much, just handed it to me. I pressed it between the pages of my favorite book, a little piece of that day saved forever. I still have it, a metaphor for a love that was preserved but fragile. And every 2 weeks, a slice of our paychecks went straight into our savings. We watched that balance grow, number by number, into something that felt like a reward for all that sacrifice. $850,000. It was every overtime shift, every school event. John had a corner of the backyard picked out for a vegetable garden. I wanted to learn to paint. We were going to get an RV and see the national parks. We just wanted ease. We thought our fortress was impenetrable. Then came the invitation that would destroy it all. It wasn't a gift. It was a trap disguised as kindness. The anxiety crept in slowly, a low hum fed by news reports about market volatility. Our money was in a standard mix of stocks and bonds, but as we neared 65, sensible started to feel fragile. That's when the invitation showed up. It was printed on thick, glossy cardstock, offering a complimentary gourmet dinner at a steakhouse we'd only ever visited for big anniversaries. The topic? Retirement protection and guaranteed income strategies. The clinking of silverware filled the room. Around us, other couples sat with hopeful eyes. At the front, the man paced with a blindingly white smile and a rehearsed, easy charisma. He didn't feel like a salesman. He felt like a guide. He started by validating our fears, painting a grim picture where traditional retirement was a roll of the dice. We all nodded along, our stakes getting cold. Then he introduced the solution, a variable annuity. He used words like secure, protect, and transfer risk. He described it as a way to get the upside of the stock market with none of the downside. Imagine, he said, leaning in, participating in market gains, but having a floor, a guarantee that you will never lose your principal. Imagine a guaranteed income for life. A week later, in his plush office, he sealed the deal using compliments as weapons. He called John a hard-working man who deserved to rest, and me a dedicated educator who deserved to be rewarded. I glanced at John, a flicker of doubt in my mind. It sounded too good to be true. But John just smiled, a look of pure relief on his face, and his reassurance made me feel foolish for even questioning it. When I asked, "Is the money liquid? Can we get to it in an emergency?" He smiled that polished smile. "Of course there are provisions for that," he said, skillfully avoiding the words surrender charge. He made us feel naive for even asking. The paperwork was a mountain. He had little yellow tabs on all the signature lines. We thought we had signed for safety. Instead, we had just signed our freedom away. For the first few months, we lived in blissful ignorance. The first crack appeared with our quarterly statement. It was a bewildering maze of columns, like hieroglyphics designed to confuse. There were different values for accumulated value, benefit base, and cash surrender value, and all of them were lower than the $850,000 we'd put in. "What's this mortality and expense risk charge?" I asked John, pointing to a line that had deducted thousands. "And what's an administrative fee and sub-account management fees?" he muttered. These were termites silently eating our fortress. The combined fees were nearly 3.5% a year. On $850,000, that's almost $30,000 a year, gone. When we called our advisor, the warm guide was replaced by a busy, impatient professional. "That's all standard for the level of protection you have," he said curtly. The second, deeper crack came 6 months later. The roof gave out. The quote was $25,000. I called the annuity company. The woman on the phone was polite but firm. "Ma'am, you are in the 10-year surrender period. Any withdrawal will be subject to a 9% surrender charge." I was stunned. "A surrender charge?" "Yes, ma'am," she said calmly. "It's on page 47 of your contract. 9%. A $2,250 penalty to use our own money." That night, the fight came. John slammed the contract on the kitchen table. 40 years I broke my back at that plant. For what? So some slick-haired crook can lock it away from us? He yelled, pacing in circles, his voice cracking. "It's a cage." A gilded cage. That night we sat across the dinner table, 2 plates of food cooling between us, the silence thick with our shared anger and shame. And yet, as bad as this was, we still had no idea how much worse it was about to get. We felt so alone in this. But I now know thousands of people are put in this position every year. If our story sounds familiar, if you've ever been trapped by a financial decision, please tell your story in the comments. We have to break the silence together. The next 2 years were a slow-motion nightmare. Even in a good market, our annuities' value barely budged. After the outrageous fees, we were paying a fortune to stand still. The final blow came not from the market, but from a single letter, a legal notice. It informed us that the insurance company that underwrote our annuity, the one we were told was rock solid, was insolvent. My hand shook so badly I could barely hold the paper. The words on the page started to smear as my eyes blurred with tears. Receivership. Liquidation. The kitchen clock ticked, each second unbearably loud in the sudden vast silence. The company that held our entire net worth, the company that made all those guarantees, was bankrupt. Our advisor's number was disconnected. He had vanished. We hired a fee-only fiduciary, Mr. Chen. He sat at our kitchen table and paused, letting the silence hang in the air before he delivered the final verdict. With the insurance company insolvent, he said gently, the guarantees are effectively void. They are only as good as the company that makes them. He explained that our assets were now in the hands of the State Guarantee Association. Your state's guarantee association covers annuities up to $250,000. I just stared at him. $250,000? But we put in $850,000. I know, Mr. Chen said softly. The remaining $600,000 becomes a claim against the insurer's estate. It could take years, and you will likely only receive pennies on the dollar. The RV map on the wall suddenly looked like a battlefield, the pins marking a graveyard of lost dreams, places we would never see. I looked at John. The color had drained from his face. This was a man who never broke, who endured 40 years of grinding labor. But now he looked like an old oak splitten in a storm. He put his head in his hands, and his shoulders began to shake, crushed by the weight of it all. I hadn't seen my husband cry since his father's funeral. The sound of his quiet, broken sobs was the sound of our world ending. So, here we are. We're packing our lives into cardboard boxes. The "for sale" sign is on the lawn because we can't afford the property taxes. We're taping up boxes of photo albums, pausing at snapshots of our daughter's first birthday, of family vacations we thought were just the beginning. The other day, I saw John touching the marks on the doorway where we'd tracked her height, his calloused hand tracing the ghost of a life we no longer have. Tears fell on the cardboard as we sealed the boxes shut. The corner of the yard where his vegetable garden was supposed to be is overgrown with weeds. We're in our late 60s and we're job hunting. I'm applying to be a teacher's aide. John, his back aching, is looking for work as a greeter. The shame is suffocating. After a year of legal wrangling, a check for just over $250,000 arrived from the State Guarantee Association. It will keep us from being homeless enough to rent a small apartment. But it is not a retirement. It is survival. We thought we had bought safety. What we really bought was a $600,000 lie. So why am I telling you this? Because our biggest mistake was our ignorance. First, if a product is too complex to understand, walk away. Second, a guarantee is only as strong as the company backing it. Finally, never sign a financial document you haven't read and don't fully understand. Get a second opinion. Our future is no longer a golden road. It's a narrow, uncertain path. But in all this devastation, we still have each other. This morning, we sat with our coffee in the empty living room, and he reached over and held my hand. That love, at least, has survived. And we have this story. By sharing it, we are turning our pain into a purpose. I refuse to let our ruin be silent. Please, I am begging you, share this video. Share it as a warning to your friends and family. If this could happen to us, it could happen to them. The financial industry has billions for marketing. We just have our stories. Join our community, not just for our story, but to fight back against an industry that counts on our silence. Let's break that silence together. Let's make our stories loud. Subscribe for more of our journey and to join a community that is fighting back. Thank you for listening. Watch this next for another gripping tale of retirement gone wrong, plus the lesson you can't afford to miss.